You're about to deal with forces you can't possibly comprehend.
Welcome to GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, aka the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author, and certified self-leadership trainer with the John Maxwell team, Dom Brightman. And this is the podcast where authors from around the world help you realize that success is tangible. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as the Going North Podcast, aka GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, we got another guest that probably fits all three of those G's, folks. Those three of those wonderful G's. Because my goodness, today's guest, this show's a magnet for super special, awesome humans. Because today's guest, a former actress, y'all, who is currently a Latinx influencer, transformational life coach, and a motivational speaker. That's right, folks. You're going to run through 5 brick walls after this conversation, y'all. Who facilitates dynamic workshops across the United States of the USA, where she helps people to learn to connect with their inner creativity and use their anxiety as a wellness barometer. And when this wonderful lady is not at work, she's a mom, traveler, volunteer, tech evangelist, food justice advocate, mentor, soulmate seeker, and most of all, genuinely human. So that's right, folks. We got a real leather jacket, another leather jacket in the podcast house. Thanks, folks. That's right. So let's give it up for the double A herself, aka Miss Double Angel herself, Miss Angel Gabrielle Aviles. How you doing today, Angel?
Oh my gosh, I feel like after that much hype, I'm like, who? What? Me? Plus with the voice, it's so much. I'm like, wow, I'm feeling fabulous.
Heck yeah, you should. You freaking should, because you've done a lot. And the good news is there's more to come.
Yeah, I've done a lot and I've been blessed. And I do believe that there is more to come.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's more like s'mores, right?
All day.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The marshmallow goodness with all the chocolate. That's right. Of course, some brown caramel, too. Don't worry.
Hey, all of it by the campfire. Must add fire, though. Must add fire. And I think that that's sort of a metaphor for a lot of what life has been about.
You could say that again, because you've been bringing the heat, because you got this wonderful, awesome book that's been out for about a year. So, my goodness. So, with this wonderful life that you live, you finally took around a good, if I'm not mistaken, a whole decade, 10 years to finally get it out. So, my goodness, what made you finally press the publish button? Was it the wonderful, evil year that should not be named 2020, where it's like, all right, got to finally do this thing?
Yeah, it was a combination of things. So as you mentioned, it did take 10 years. I had been a life coach for about a decade, and my book started out as a workbook that I was just going to give to clients. And then through social media, more people started asking me to write a book, write a book, write a book. So I went to one of my favorite motivational speakers workshops, and it was Lisa Nichols. I don't know if you're familiar with her, but I adore her. And she had a book writing conference that I went to. And it took me about a year after that to commit to pressing the publish button. I think the hardest part for me was adding my real life story to the workbook. So adding the vulnerable pieces, the pieces that were scary or still in the dark or not known to everyone out on the planet. That was the hard part, but ultimately I realized that without that it was really not going to be much of anything. It was just something that it was a gathering of a lot of information that you could get from anywhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I definitely could say that again, because, yeah, it's part memoir, part self-help. It's out of curiosity. I was probably saving this for later, but are you ambidextrous out of curiosity?
I am.
Oh, okay. All righty,
Yes.
cool.
As is my sister. So my sister's dominant left hand. She writes with her left hand, but she does other things with her right hand, eats and what have you. And I am also ambidextrous, dominant right, but I do things with my left.
Oh,
That's a
all
rare
right.
question. Not that many people ask me that, ask me that.
Yeah, because I finished your book on audio yesterday, and you mentioned the 333 method of writing affirmations. I'm like, okay, I gotta ask her if she's ambidextrous. Cause I'm like writing with your non-dominant hand if you're not.
I don't write with my left hand, but it is just this, the right brain, left brain dominance situation. And so just forcing yourself to do things that you wouldn't ordinarily do changes your physiology. It changes your neurotransmitters, right? You're doing something completely different. So there's a lot of brain hacking in the book, things that I've run across that I just found really effective.
Oh yeah, with a big old E, I imagine. That's right. All the effectiveness. That's right. So backtracking a bit, my goodness. So with all the success you had today, it was probably a hard journey to getting to where you currently are today. So did you ever growing up thinking that you were going to be an actress in a famous movie that apparently is still talked about that's going to be what, 30 years old next year, right? 30th anniversary, right?
Yes, you are so spot on. Yes, in one sentence, like called me out. I was going to lie and say I was in my 30s, but clearly, uh, I have to roll back. I'm totally joking. I'm 51 and really, really happy to be where I am at. I am in my age, in my life, in every area. So the movie was created in 1992. We began shooting in 1992. It ultimately came out in 1994. Things were a lot slower then. It was analog movie making. So now it's digital movie making. And so I think things come out a lot more quickly, especially things with like not a whole lot of special effects, but regular storytelling. Did I think as a kid that I was going to be in a movie that would be that successful? I don't think I was that specific, but I think like so many kids, I was practicing my autograph for one day. I just knew I was going to do something with my life. I was born in the projects, grew up in the hood, and it's funny, I talked to one of my best friends and I'm like, did you realize we grew up in the hood? And she was like, nah. It wasn't until we left the hood that we were like, oh, damn. And I mean, years later that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's the hood. It was full of love and full of a lot of cultural experiences. But the one thing I can say growing up is that my mom most definitely really made sure that we felt capable of dreaming. She always took us to the arts. I grew up in New York City where, there was just so much free stuff, free cultural events. So I grew up going to Shakespeare in the Park and free concerts and off-Broadway productions and knowing what TKTS was, which is like extremely discounted tickets for Broadway shows or off Broadway. So my mom, who was also a part of a theater troupe, wanted us to know that creativity was an important part of releasing and expression that she wanted us to have as part of our lives. I actually started out as a dance major at the High School of Performing Arts. So acting I didn't pick up till probably I was a junior in high school. I started auditioning for commercials and then I got a soap opera and then moved to LA. But my brother, and who is Rick Aviles, who played Willie Lopez in Ghost, had already experienced, you know, quite a bit of success as a stand-up comic and then as an actor. So I think also watching him and where he came from to where he finally ultimately arrived, I did believe that anything was possible.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. And that's the wonderful thing about having great parents. It's like you grew up in the hood and you didn't even realize it until you grew up and moved out of the hood. It's like, oh, wow. So the whole world really isn't like this.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's just a state of mind too. Like your economic condition is not where the trap is. The trap is definitely in the mind.
Mm-hmm. That's right. You're so darn right about that. It's like, hey, the trap. Yeah, it ain't just that music or the drugs. It's actually what we allow our mind to become if we're not careful about that. And if I'm not mistaken, like it actually was a trap for you when you had to deal with depression with a whole lot of stuff in your life with grief on multiple occasions, even after having some fame and really just having to still really transform your pain into power. So, how was really that whole process like of really trying to transform your pain into power? Because a lot of people are going through that now, if not more than ever. That's been multiplied thanks to last year and everything that's happening this year and the recovery that's required to help us get to that point.
So yeah, I definitely dealt with trauma. I found myself managing trauma from my childhood later on in life. And I think that part of that is something that I hope people will take heed of. You know, the things that happened in 2019, 2020, and even into 2021 with living through a pandemic alone brought a certain degree of trauma. But you can sit on trauma and you can try to hide it, but unless it's addressed, it's always going to be there. And when it rears its head is really not up to you. So it's best if you can go and get ahead of it and manage it and tap into where those deep scars and cuts are, and you can tend to them right away. For me, having carried that into my adulthood and having just found a way to push through, push through, push through, because once again, I just thought like, well, whatever. These things are just things that happen. And I learned how to cope. And to a certain degree, I coped very well. I looked good in my coping, right? I was young, I was cute, I was married to a fine man. We had three beautiful kids, sent them to a great private school here in Los Angeles, had the house, the cars, the pit bulls. Um, so much of life looked good. And so I was able to manage a lot. And then this, like you said, the trigger of losing people back to back really became something that just sort of ignited this residual trauma that I had not dealt with.
Ah, yeah, and I believe some of it actually showed up as panic attacks, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Horrible, debilitating panic attack. So my first panic attack happened. I was on a family vacation. Who does not love Disney World? I was in Florida, and as a kid, I remember loving Disney World, and I wanted to give that experience to my kids. And so there I am, just so happy with my babies getting on a ride, and all of a sudden the ride closes and I experienced such a profound sense of claustrophobia that I seriously thought I was going to die. When I try to explain to a person who's never experienced what panic attacks are actually like, it can often be interpreted as being dramatic, especially coming from me because I'm a storyteller. So I do tend to tell stories in a very large way, but in no way does my dramatic effect or my dramatic storytelling in any way negate the actual fact that a panic attack can feel like a heart attack. It can feel like you're going to pass out. It can feel like you are actually going to die. And so I had this closing of my chest where I felt like I couldn't breathe. And the only thing that kept me from screaming and completely losing my mind was looking down at my daughter and thinking, all right, so if I die, I'm just going to die quietly because I don't want to freak her out. And that was my first panic attack. And that incident ultimately led to a series of panic attacks. Because if you've ever had a panic attack, the next thing that begins to happen is that you become afraid to have another panic attack. So every situation where I was in an enclosed area became a source of anxiety. I started to have to
Mm.
plan how far I was going to drive. I had to plan where I was going, so I couldn't enjoy certain things. There were some salt caves that my friends wanted to go to. I couldn't imagine putting myself in a cave. So it became a really huge problem, so much to the point where I got agoraphobic, I got claustrophobic. I would have episodes of crying in the closet because I was depressed. I didn't recognize that person.
Mm. Ouch, man.
Um,
And I'm guessing some therapy was able to help you get through some of that trauma yourself.
I chased wellness like it was life or death, and it was life for me. So I chased every kind of modality of healing I could think of. I went after my mental, my physical, and my spiritual wellness all at once. And so I started to do a deep cleansing of every area of my life. This is why I talk about my anxiety being a barometer for my wellness, because a barometer measures the atmospheric pressure of what's happening. And so I am a body, mind, and spirit being, I believe. So if I'm feeling anxious, even now I'm panic attack free for the last 10 years.
Woohoo!
However, yes, yeah, I'm super excited about that. But I do gauge myself to see if I am feeling anxious, if I begin to get that twinge. Okay, so what is it? Did I have too much caffeine? Am I sleeping well? Am I in an environment that makes me feel uncomfortable? Have I really connected? Have I had enough quiet time? Have I had enough quiet mind time?
Mm.
Am I spending time in a creative space? Am I liking what I'm doing with my life? Like, self-care is an incredible part of healing, but it's only the beginning. We're such complicated beings that self-care has to also include, self-care is an action, and it includes mental pieces, it includes spiritual pieces, and it includes physical pieces. So really being able to take the time to delve deeply into figuring out what is going to be that combination of things that makes you well. And it may change from day to day, but it's really about having that connection to self so that you don't get lost and you don't let the anxiety because the world is full of pressure.
Mm.
I remember last year I called my therapist and I was like, okay, I need to just touch base. And she was like, well, is there anything in particular? And I'm like, there's nothing in particular, but it's everything,
Ouch.
right?
Ouch.
Like, we're
Yeah.
living in a pandemic and I don't want to carry the coping of this
Mm.
and then 5 years have a breakdown because of what 2020 was.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, and as you say, that actually reminded me of a certain pastor, I believe it was Stephen Furtick, how he mentioned how when it came to therapy, he was going to get preventive therapy in advance in preparation in case something would happen because he's about to be a pastor. He's like, he announced to his congregation he was going to get that in advance. So that just shows that you're planning ahead, making sure that, hey, let's not make the same mistake again and let's try to deal with this now, as opposed to, like, oh, yeah, I haven't had one in 10 years. I'm undefeated. Let's just keep going here. It's like, nah, you're actually preparing in advance. So you're just dropping magical jewels here for folks to keep in mind. Always prepare in advance. And like what Angel did, chase that wellness.
Yes, chase your wellness. And I love the idea of preventative therapy because honestly, it's like preventative medicine. So many of us don't think about our physical bodies unless something is wrong. We'll miss a wellness check, but we'll go in when something is wrong. That natural ability to check in where you are mentally, spiritually, physically, it really does matter. Something happened this year. My both of my kids graduated. So my daughter graduated from high school last year, and my son graduated this year. But my
Ooh.
daughter, because of COVID, was in university from her bedroom.
Ah.
This year, universities opened, and so she went off, and so did my son. And this is a wonderful thing, right? Like, this is your parents' dream. Like, my kids got to go to the schools that they wanted to go to. They're living their best life. They're thriving. And I've been looking forward to this my entire life, right? Since I've known them. And and still I found it difficult to navigate that because they're gone. My whole house feels different. Everything in my world has changed. And so when we look at what preventative therapy is, it's not just preventing for the negative experiences, but you have to also prepare for the positive experiences. This was a positive change in my life. However, I had to emotionally gauge and change and navigate this time. So I really, really appreciate that. Preventative therapy.
Oh yeah, that's right. The
Mhm.
PT that folks don't even think about, right?
Yes.
That's right. That's right. The magical PT, indeed. That's right, indeed. So, with all of this wonderful knowledge, like you also mentioned that your 40s were actually a period of rebirth for you after all of this. So, I'm assuming that all the therapy was also part of the rebirth that was happening.
Yes, absolutely. Just all of the modalities available now. There's so many wonderful, wonderful modalities, wonderful healing available. So much of it is free. Take advantage of it. Take advantage of the exploration. Take advantage. For me, in the Latino community, in the Latinx community, there is a lot of stigma behind pursuing mental health. There's also a lot of stigma in putting yourself out there and letting your business be known in the street. So another reason why it took 10 years for me to write this book, right? Oh my gosh, I'm putting my business out on the street. True story is that the first couple of books I sold ahead, and I sold them through my website, and I had everyone's address. So the orders came in, and I was like, okay, so I have these 5 addresses I've sent out. At least I know that if I have to go and break into their houses and take my book back, I can possibly do that. Um,
That bad, huh?
yeah, like I'm a loca, right? That's craziness. But in my mind, I was like, okay, there's only 5 people that know my whole business. That's okay. It's manageable. I can fly to Texas and Florida and Chicago and Fresno. It was so this was like that's how hard it was to just release that into the world. And then, when I finally decided, okay, I'm going to publish on Amazon, I was like, this is it. Like now there's no tracking. It's just out in the world. And I had to make peace with it. Like it is what it is. And ultimately, I've gotten so many wonderful responses. So many people have written to me and told me that they really got a lot out of the book, and that it was a doorway, which is exactly what it's meant to be. It's not the be all end all. It's simply a beginning. Like, can we have a dialogue about mental health? Can we have a dialogue about physical wellness, about taking time and putting down the hustle and really, really connecting to what it is that we're supposed to be doing on this planet?
Oh, yeah, you definitely could say that again. And I'm so glad you got over that and dropped the imposter syndrome, which is really a hot topic nowadays thanks to social media. So, is there anything else that helped you to get over that imposter syndrome to finally really get the book out there without having to worry about trying to break into people's houses and steal the book? So they wouldn't know anything.
Well, that yeah, that would have been something. Like all these break-ins, and all that was missing was a copy of Too Happy to Be Sad Girl. Um, that would have been news for real. That would have been like the ultimate publicity stunt, right?
Yeah.
So, getting over imposter syndrome, I think one of the things that helped me to get over imposter syndrome is obviously, like so much of the book, affirmations and all of those things, but also coming to an understanding that as a woman of color, as a person of color, really, um, of course, we're going to have imposter syndrome. I think that that was something that I really had to understand and break down like my whole life to a certain degree in this society. I am set up against what is considered normal, beautiful, everything socially acceptable, socially excellent. So, just really understanding that as a person of color, we're always going to be judged, measured, gauged by an ideal that is not really necessarily who we are at our core. The cultural I mean, growing up in the United States has been a complete pleasure. I'm not going to say that I've hated being an American by any means, but when you begin to recognize that discrimination exists, racism exists, um, obviously those things have an impact on who we are and how we grow up. And really navigating that and recognizing that this is imposter syndrome, but it's not personal,
Mm,
right? It's like this
mm.
grand cultural blanket that we have to deal with. And then any of the additional nuances, okay, I'll take that, right? I'll take my other little idiosyncrasies. But the fact that I've had to be measured up against a standard that's impossible, well, that's just a given.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and it's definitely rough because it's like, of course, with being a person of color, especially a lady of color, it's like, all right, so you already got the regular responsibilities that you have to worry about, and then there's all these other invisible yet visible standards that are put on you. It's like you got to be perfect and some. And it's like, wow, I just got to deal with all that. And then on top of that, it's probably the fact that growing up, you're kind of like a TMI storage because a lot of folks would bring their problems to you because I guess they sense some healing properties and some of the stuff that you were doing where you eventually became a life coach through all of this. So what helped you to really find the confidence to really just do that and then add that on and make that basically part of all that you do now with dealing with all that past stuff and now basically being closer to master status of dealing with all of that?
I think that the thing that happened is one, I lived through it and I just got brave enough to talk about it. It became important enough for me to share because I started to recognize how many other people out there were struggling. How many other people were living this life and doing a lot of coping and doing a lot of really, really working hard to again fit into a standard that just was not of their own creation, desire, making. And I just started sharing. I started sharing on social media. And the process of becoming a coach was very organic. My first client asked me if I would coach them. And so as you read in my book, I worked in marketing. So I thought my first clients, and it was actually a couple, I thought they wanted me to help them with their marketing, but they wanted me to help them with their mindset. And I was like blown away. So by the second session, the husband was like, "So when are we going to get to the mindset stuff?" Like I had laid out this whole marketing plan, and then I realized, oh wow, like this is a viable thing. This is something that I should be offering, and I just started to do so, and still like on the down low because once again, as a mom, and I was a single mom co-parenting. I don't like to say single mom because my kid's dad is definitely influential and present. So, but we were separated, we were divorced. So I was raising my kids in my own household. So there were things that I felt I had to do based on security. So I still worked my regular 9 to 5 and I coached on the side. Ultimately, as I became more confident in my coaching, I just ditched the 9 to 5 and decided to dedicate myself to coaching 100%. And I've been able to do that in addition to doing one on ones. I've had the opportunity to have workshops all over the country, which is to my greatest pleasure, to be honest, because I always say I'd like to show up where, Tony Robbins would never show up, with where Gabby Bernstein would never. They're not going to Compton. They're not going to East Los or Fresno or parts of Phoenix or San Antonio. They're not going to go there, right? And so I like to encourage people to, like, we have to bloom where we're planted. Our communities are so full of life and hope, and we get to go back and infuse our communities with the knowledge that we've learned. We don't have to take our lumps and bumps and split. We can take our lumps and bumps, learn, travel, come back, travel, come back. Like, we're part of this incredible cycle. One of the greatest privileges I've had is to show up at prisons, do these incredible workshops, and change lives as I go.
Ah, yeah, with all the quarters and dimes changing lives. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's right. Going to where the underserved folks are, indeed. It's like, yeah, y'all big names, y'all help out people. Like, nah, but it's time to take these towns to where folks may not go, indeed. Help out the folks who truly need it at a higher level. Indeed, that's what I'm talking about. So, how was that switch from basically doing the whole 9 to 5, being a co parent, having to raise 2 kids, all the way to transferring, going to full time? Like, how was that process like for? Because pretty sure a lot of folks are still dealing with that nowadays, where it's like, I need to drop this whole ball and chain of a 9 to 5 here, really do the entrepreneurship full time.
It was scary, to be honest, right? I live in a very expensive city. When you have kids, it's not just about you. I'm a minimalist, so I could take my little 2 suitcases and go. But when you have kids and you're thinking about what security is for them, and you're in agreements with family members, and it's not just you, there can be a
Mhm.
lot of factors that have you thinking. But I think that I've definitely met people who have taken the leap. There's nothing that we can't do, and that's the honest to God truth. Obviously, you want to proceed with wisdom and not let fear masquerade as wisdom,
Mm.
right? Because sometimes fear can wear a lot of hats. It can look like a lot of different things. But proceed and really think about, okay, so what do you need to live? And hire the right people. I think that that's one of the things too, in realizing that, having a coaching business, I've been far more successful when I've gotten more help. The more help I
Mm.
have, the more successful I can be. So I did learn that I should operate in my zone of genius. So I'm good at marketing, but I don't love it. So I can give my marketing to someone. Um, I like keeping track of money, but I don't love it, right? So I don't do my own taxes. I have people that are specialists in certain areas that really help me out. And that helps you to get a real honest to God gauge on where you can be in terms of having a business as opposed to having a side hustle, right? Because your business is about it's about sustainability, it's about growth, and and obviously it's about helping other people too. So really creating a business as opposed to a side hustle is a leap.
Oh, yeah, that's right. A leap into a chalice of jewels, 'cause that's what she's dropping, y'all. The double angels dropping gems, y'all. That's right, indeed. Don't let fear masquerade as wisdom, y'all. I'm telling you. My goodness, my goodness. And heck, even followed up with the two-piece like a Popeye's box of making sure. Yeah,
Are you
good times.
hungry?
No.
Because we mentioned honey buns earlier, and now we're into Popeyes. And I'm like, is it lunchtime? Actually, it is.
uh, yeah. Well, since we went to food, a new question I've been popping on guests, and it's been interesting seeing their reactions. So, if your book was a particular, since your book is mental food, what would you describe your book as? If it was a food item, what food item would it be?
Mm, I'd have to say tacos. I'd have to, it'd have to be, it's tacos. It's for everyone. It's like a real basic type of food, but it's sustainable. It's delicious. It's spicy, and it's ready to go.
Oh, yeah, that's right. It's ready to go indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, love that answer. That's right. The
Yeah,
spice, everything nice.
it's short too. So I really wanted it to be a short book. Some of the comments that I've gotten is, why wasn't it longer? I wanted to learn more about this, and I wanted to learn more about that. And why did you go into detail with this? And really, because I wanted to make it as relatable as possible. I didn't want people to get caught up in the specifics of my life. Obviously, I did talk about Mi Vida Loca, which being an actor is a very special type of thing. It's a blessing and something special to make a living as an artist. However, I didn't want it to seem like I was that special for having done that. Like anyone can actually do this. This can happen to anyone. So things like anxiety, panic, they can happen whether you've had a career in acting or not. Some of the trauma that I addressed when I was younger, that can happen to anyone, anywhere. Death, divorce, these things happen to everyone. You know, the effects happen at some point to everyone. So that's why I went into some detail, but I didn't elaborate to make this book 350 pages.
Hey, more power to you with that one, because short books are the way to go nowadays, and it's even better that you're reading your own book. So it's like, yeah, you get to take Angel on the go in more ways than one. So since you're on this wonderful podcast tour and you've been on the guest side of the game multiple times, is there a question that you wish you would receive more often?
A question I wish I would receive more often. I think that some of the questions have just been incredible. I love the questions that I get because they come from such a diverse perspective. So no one's ever asked me about what kind of food my book would be, right? Um, the idea of putting me on the spot, it's like it really causes me to be super present. So I think that questions like that, like on the fly, are always magical because it makes me think like, oh, I would have never thought to ask that. But that's interesting and it stimulates something in me. So just keep those spontaneous questions coming.
Oh, yeah. That's right. The magical spontaneity. That's right. With the bunny ears on the monkeys all day, right?
Dude, we talked about no other animals, only monkeys.
Any particular reason why monkeys should be alone by themselves as the queens and kings when it comes to animal
Yes,
references with you?
yes, because as I mentioned earlier on in our pre-call, that my mom had a dream the day I was born, the evening before I was born. My mom had a dream that she gave birth to a monkey. And the monkey raised her fist in the air and said, "My name is Angel Gabriel." And so my mom felt compelled to name me Angel Gabriel. So I always think that that was just something special.
Oh yeah, that's right. Something special indeed. The double angel appeared, y'all. That's what I'm talking about. That's right. She's 15 currently. That's right. If you're dyslexic, it's like, oh yeah, she's 15, y'all. I'm telling you. That's right. All this experience of 15. Gotta love it.
Mhm.
That's
Yes,
right indeed.
absolutely.
Oh man. And what I love about you and your book is this one line in particular that I highlight is that you wrote to give yourself permission to be quirky. Because we're in the era now where folks are still fighting with that, even though a lot of folks are more receptive to it. So, any advice for those who need to still give themselves that permission to be quirky?
Yes, start alone. Start by yourself. You don't have to bring your quirky personality out into the universe or out into your public spaces, but get confident enough to be your damn self in your quiet moments, right? Joke with yourself, laugh with yourself. One of the things I talk about all the time is spontaneous laughter. So, how kids have spontaneous laughter. They're just not ashamed, afraid, embarrassed to let it rip and let themselves have fun. And I feel like if we lose that, we lose one, a connection to that inner child, but also w- allowing that allows the happy chemicals to occur. And if you allow yourself to be quirky, crazy, uniquely you, you're living in a zone of creativity, and that's where you belong. We're creative beings as far as I'm concerned. I was taught I was created in the image of my creator. And so being in the image of the creator, I must be a creator. And so allowing yourself to escape the judgment that you fear from other people will allow you to occupy that space and actually tap into your unique ability to do what you came here to do.
That's right. That's right. Do what you
And
came here
sometimes
to
it's
do.
yeah, and sometimes it's quirky. Sometimes it's you know, sometimes it's not necessarily what's expected, and that's okay. I am so not what people expect sometimes, right? I'm so uh I don't know, sometimes I think people expect me to be a little bit more maybe angry because Sad Girl was kind of angry or standoffish. But I love people and I'm goofy. I mean, I really am. I'm goofy.
That's what I'm talking about. I'm always a fan of the goofy folks because that means I get to be my goofy self and it's a-okay. Although sometimes a little go a little overboard.
Do you, right? That's why it's called Dom Brightman Show. It's not called somebody else's show.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right indeed. It's the show indeed. And this is a showstopper of a guest, y'all. That's what I'm talking about indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. So we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but this time in the current year of 2021 with all of your knowledge and experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
I would just say yes. I'd say yes. Can you do this? Yes. Will you do this? Yes. Are there going to be hard times? Yes. Will you make it? Yes. Will you grow? Yes. Should you love? Yes. I would say yes a lot more.
Ah, there we go. That's right, folks. So if you're asking yourself, should I buy 99 copies of Angel Aviles' book, you should say yes. That's right, folks. I'm telling you. That's right, indeed. Tell yourself yes. Don't even think about it. Just go to Amazon, hit 99 for the quantity. Just hit yes. That's right. And give them out to people. I'm telling you. That's right. Pass them out to people. That's right. Be a wonderful evangelist for Angel. That's right. That's right. Or should I say the double angel?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, indeed. So for those who also not only want to buy the magic book, the audio book, they also want to keep up with what you're doing, what's the best way for folks to do so?
So you can catch me on my website at angelawakened.com. You can also follow me on Instagram at angelawakened. You can find me on Twitter at Too Happy to Be Sad Girl. And you can also find me at Facebook, Angel Aviles.
Woo! That's right. That's what I'm talking about. This angel's woke, y'all. I'm telling you. That's right. She woke, y'all. That's right. AngelAwaken.com. Indeed. Following all of the social medias. That's right. She's on the LinkedIn too. So be free to reach out to her. Indeed. Especially want to have her speak at your organization. Heck, even speak to whatever prison you may have. If you are one of those wardens or whatever, want to bring her in to speak to the inmates, let her know. Invited to speak, pay the fee, invest. That's right. Because it's a good investment indeed. It's good with all the O's. It's good.
And one of the cool things about the prisons, I'll add this, is that I didn't only do the workshops for the inmates. You see, on the other side, and this is important for especially my community and communities of color, marginalized communities who occupy the prison spaces, is that people on the other side are also experiencing high levels of trauma, right? Who are those COs working? Those are people from the same neighborhoods that the prisoners come from. They are also traumatized. A lot of them went in thinking that they were going to do a good thing and came upon some red tape and have seen some things that in and of themselves are so traumatic. And at the end of the day, we're all people, we're all humans. And so whatever line, whether you're the one with the key locking the door or you're the one on the inside being locked in, it's still the same. You're still occupying the same space.
Yeah, that's right. Telling you all, if you only got a tennis bracelet gems from this interview, something wrong. I'm telling you, y'all, that's right. Because she's giving you both sides of the coin, y'all. I'm telling you, both sides of the coin. Because it's so true. The inmates, it's already rough for them, especially for when they got in there. Then the CEOs, too. It's like, oh, God, gotta deal with this darn outside world where it's probably a twilight zone from what they expected growing up just a few years ago. Because there's a lot of changes that have happened. So definitely, it's always good to get both sides of the story and acknowledge the fact that, hey, trauma's happening on both ends. It's not just one group of folks. Like, it may be hitting some folks harder than most, but it's still happening.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's right, indeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, any parting words for the folks listening right now before we close up shop, Angel?
No, I just want to say that I'm happy to have done this interview. I look forward to hearing. Look forward to hearing it, and also to just continuing to keep the conversation open. I think that conversations are definitely two-way. So, for anyone who has any comments or questions, keep the conversations going. I'm always open to learning. I'm obviously open to giving information, but I'm also open to learning and growing in my capacity to learn about new things.
How's it going, my friend? I'm so glad you made it to the end. That shows that you are an uncommon finisher, and I am so grateful for you sharing your ears, your attention, and your time to this wonderful podcast. To do something that'll take yourself to the next level, and for everybody else involved in this wonderful program, share it with at least 3 people in your network so that way more folks can be inspired to be their best.